Welcome back to another episode. You know that we already do auto insurance here at Great Florida Pembroke Pines, but this episode is really going to target what drives that premium. I have no one better to answer these questions than my husband, Jovanny. So I'm just going to talk through what makes insurance, specifically auto insurance policies, work, things you should know, tips, tricks. So without further ado, Gio, why is auto insurance so expensive in Florida?
Hey everyone. Excited to talk about auto insurance to really, get into like the nitty gritty of things so people have a good understanding. What drives the price of auto insurance in Florida? There's many factors, right? First of all, it's a very populated state, so there's a lot of accidents. A lot of accidents, of course, is going to cause premiums to go up. And there's also a lot of litigation in Florida, right? So in Florida, we have what's known as PIP, personal injury protection, which we're going to dive into a little later. But that's a coverage, when you hear the no-fault state, right? So many people are like, oh, it's a no-fault state.
Hear it on commercials all the time.
Yeah, exactly, right? So what does no-fault mean? And I'll just dive into the coverage now because that's one of the big driving factors of premiums here in Florida. So no-fault is personal injury protection, right? So you're in a car, someone runs a red light and T-bones you. The first $10,000 of medical benefits comes out of your own insurance policy under personal injury protection, right? Obviously, we learned that with your accident about 8 months ago, right? Thankfully, you're okay. So it's crazy, right? You got T-boned, someone ran a red light, and you're going to your insurance policy to file a claim, all right? Why did they do that? Because you're probably thinking, what the heck? What type of law is that? If you think about it, the reason they put that law into place is they're trying to avoid litigation, right? So this is the funny part. They do this to avoid litigation because they say, all right, if Colette has $2,000 worth of injuries from that T-bone accident, I don't want Colette to sue the at-fault person for $2,000 because then you have a lawsuit for $2,000, right? So let's just get rid of that and Colette could go to her own policy under personal injury protection and recoup the $2,000, in that example, but up to $10,000. But what happened in Florida is the PIP, or no-fault personal injury protection, opened up a can of worms.
Exploited.
Yeah. There's a lot of clinics. You hear the no-fault, come get treated for your neck and back, all that. And, of course, those are legit treatments, right? Like you had injuries. You actually had to go to the chiro for a total loss. But people end up kind of getting treatment. Yeah, abusing it. I don't want to get into detail. Yeah, it's like a fender bender, right, from my claims days at State Farm. You have a fender bender where there's literally a scratch and someone's going to the chiro 4 times a week. I'm not no doctor. I can't tell you what injuries you have at all, but a scratch in your car probably didn't really give you a whiplash. So that drives the premiums up, right? So
is everyone required to have PIP or PIP coverage?
Yes. So in order to drive in Florida, in order to get insurance, to get a vehicle, you need to have insurance, and the insurance requirements are you got to have PIP, right? And property damage of $10,000. That's all that Florida requires. They don't require any other coverage, PIP and PD, right? So when you hear like PIP PD minimum policy, that's what's required to drive.
Okay, property damage, like I am reversing and I hit my neighbor's mailbox, or what's property damage?
Correct. Yeah, that's a perfect example, right? You're
this
reversing.
Didn't happen, by the way. Mr. Daniel, Mr. Willett did not hit your mailbox.
Yeah, so if you hit a mailbox, if you hit another car, right? Any property you hit, that comes out of your property damage coverage in your policy, right? So the minimum requirement in Florida is $10,000 of property damage coverage. I always recommend having a lot more coverage than that because $10,000 goes like this, right? A scratch on a car nowadays could be $2,000. Depends what car you hit. You hit a Lambo, like for Mr. Xavier, it's probably $10,000 for a little dent in the bumper, right? So yeah, that's the property damage portion of the policy.
Okay, so when you're building a quote, you have PIP, you have PD. What else are you implementing when you're building an auto quote for someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing we're implementing or looking for coverage is bodily injury, right? What is bodily injury? Let's go back. I always use the running a red light and T-boning someone. Unfortunately, we'll use your example again just to keep it uniform. Lady ran a red light, hit you, you got injured. Her bodily injury coverage is what you went after for your medical bills, right? The lawsuit after you're at PIP, right? Because you had your initial PIP of $10,000, but that's how you sue someone. So bodily injuries, it protects you when you injure someone in another car, or it could be in your car. right? If I'm driving and I lose control and, I have a passenger in my car and they get hurt and it's my fault because I was negligent, I'm responsible for that. Like, they can sue me, right? Everyone thinks bodily injury is just hitting another vehicle. No, people in your vehicle, you're
even
responsible.
though, of course, they chose to get in your car. If you were driving, even if you're not at fault as well, that's when it's going to kick in too, right?
Well, no, if you're not at fault, it's hard for them to come after you because bodily injury, you have to be negligent, right? You have to prove some negligence. So now, if it's a single car loss, they're going to probably mark you at fault because there's a single car accident. But if another car hits you, they're not going to go after your bodily injury. They're going to go after that vehicle that hit them.
Okay.
Right. But bodily injury is very important, right? Because you hear there's different limits, right? The minimum limits is 10, 20. You hear a lot of people say 100, 300. So what that means is that first number. So if you have 100, 300, you pay 100,000 per person, right? And up to 300,000 per accident, right? So if you have 100, 300, you T-bone someone or really injure them, and they had 3 people in the car. Let's keep it simple. Your policy can pay up to 100,000 per person, 300,000 max.
Right.
What happens if there's 5 people?
Right.
The insurance adjuster at that point has to divvy up the money into
To say for who gets what of how much.
who gets what exactly.
Okay, so just kind of piecing it all together. So we talked about PIP, PD, and we're talking about limits. So let's break that down. There's a couple of different types of limits that an individual can choose, and limits obviously drive premium. So talk to me a little bit about limits. What's your preferred limit when you're building it, or what do you recommend for all those drivers that we have here in Florida? Like, what's the GOA?
Yeah. I always start with the 100, 300 limit, right? That's my recommendation. I don't want to have the minimum coverage. Ultimately, it's up to you, the customer. I will follow your lead, but what I usually do is I'll ask you for your current policy. I'll do a quote with your current limits, and then I'll do the 100, 300 if you don't have those limits, right? Because I can't sit here. I could sit here and quote you 100, 300, but if your policy has 1020,
it's not apples to apples.
Yes, apples to oranges, and it's a big price difference, right? Someone with a 1020 may pay, let's say, $1,000, and 100, 300 is $1,500 or $2,000. So, but I always recommend that. I personally don't like doing 1020 limits. I like minimum doing 2550, right? At least to have that extra cushion. And also for property damage, I like to have it at 50,000. So bodily injury and property damage, it all ties in. It's 3 numbers. So you hear 25, 50, 50. 25, 50 is the bodily injury, 50 is the property damage portion, right? So I always like to have the higher property damage too. Back to my point, vehicles are very expensive. Property is very expensive. Any accident, 50 grand could go like that. Your car, it was a Palisade, and it was, I think, a total loss of 40 grand, right? Something like that, maybe even more. So yeah, that goes a very long way. Another coverage, which is heavily misunderstood, and I understand why it's misunderstood because of what it's called. It's called uninsured or underinsured motorist, right?
Yep.
And really listen in here, because this is huge. A lot of agents don't know this. Agents and people in the industry, it's a very confusing coverage. So uninsured, underinsured motorist, known as coverage, is a first party bodily injury coverage. What does that mean? All right. So if someone T-bones you, right? Let's use your example. They only have $10,000 limits, which the person that hit you actually had $10,000 limits, right? That got exhausted like this. What happens next? Imagine if you had a $100,000 medical bill.
Yeah, if I broke my neck or something crazy versus just
right?
the whiplash and concussion.
What was that 10 grand going to do? Absolutely nothing, right? If you have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, you go back to your own insurance company, and it's like you're filing a bodily injury claim against your own company, right? So that's why it's a first party coverage, because it's under your own policy. It is an expensive coverage, right? Some people carry it, some don't. It's just very case by case basis. I just like to explain it because what most people think uninsured and underinsured motorist is what covers their car from an uninsured person. So anytime I see someone with coverage, right, and I'm quoting, I ask them like, hey, I noticed you have do you know what that is? 95% of the time they say, yeah, that's what covers me from an uninsured person. So I could cover
it sounds like. Yeah. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, and I trust me, when I started insurance, I thought the same thing. It's like, you think uninsured, that's what covers your car from the uninsured person, but it has nothing to do with your vehicle. It's all with injuries and personal injuries, right? But what has to do with your vehicle? right? That's comprehensive and collision coverage, right? So those are the coverages that cover your vehicle. What's comprehensive coverage? Comprehensive hurricane loss, flood loss, your vehicle gets stolen, our little story about your stolen vehicle, right? A deer jumps out in front of you and you hit it. That's comprehensive coverage. It's actually not collision, although it's a collision, right? It's a little tricky, but it goes under, animal goes under comprehensive coverage. So that's what covers your vehicle. And then you have collision coverage, which collision is what it sounds like, any collision with the vehicle, right? Whether you hit a wall, a tree, another vehicle, or
what if you had a bicycle or a scooter or something like that, or those robot things that are delivering the foods on the side of the street that Xavier loves?
If it has collision damage, that's going to be collision for your car, right? Now, liability, if you hit one of those things and you hurt someone, that'll fall under your bodily injury. They're going to come after you if you're at fault, right? But collision is what covers your vehicle if an uninsured or underinsured person hits you, right? So let's say someone with no insurance totals your car. You go back to your insurance company under your collision, right? It happened in your case.
Correct.
She had $10,000 limits. The claim,
and she was a good company too. It wasn't like it was like a no name or a brand new insurance company. This is with a very well known. We both had very well known insurance carriers.
Yeah.
But it was just a matter of how her policy was built versus how my policy was built, and that's why this is so important.
Yeah. No, it is. And technically, imagine, let's go back to that scenario. Imagine you got seriously hurt. Imagine you had $50,000 of bills and she only had $10,000 of bodily injury coverage. I don't know. I didn't run an asset check. We didn't get attorneys involved. But what if she has assets?
Yeah.
And
but
I get
that
an
all
attorney
costs money
involved.
too. So to get an attorney involved and a good attorney involved, the right attorney involved, that's going to cost money from the person who's already injured, who already has all these bills also to deal with.
Of course, yeah. But if you had those injuries, guess what? We were getting an attorney and in 2 seconds, maybe in 30 seconds, you run an asset check report. I know her whole life. Not me, but the attorney, right? And I know this from when I worked at Claims at State Farm. I used to pull those reports 10 years ago. I can't even imagine what they are now, right?
That's when you'll need an umbrella policy if you have assets, but that's for another episode.
Yeah, exactly. But to tie in the assets with the bodily injury, it's important to have higher limits for that because I don't know, she may have assets. Maybe she has investments, $100,000 investments in a financial account, or she owns a secondary home under her personal name, or they have a boat under their personal name, right? Guess what? We would have gone after that. And you lose it quick. Your primary home, no, because you have homestead exemption to protects you. But anything else, I mean, it gets exposed. And people don't realize that your biggest exposure of your assets, it's your vehicle. It's a weapon.
So let me ask you, because it's just, I thought about it. All of this, like let's say someone does have lower limits and then you run an asset check, you go after them, there's a lawsuit involved, there's litigation. How is that now driving the insurance premium here in Florida? Does that get brought into how much the policy didn't cover and how much litigation was brought into it after the fact?
Of course, because your insurance company, although they're not paying from the limit, they have to defend that, right? So they have attorney costs, right? They have attorney costs that drives up their claim, right? So although they paid out the $10,000 pot, they still have costs for those attorneys that's outside of that $10,000 that they paid out to you. So that drives up costs, right? And rates. So it's very important to carry the adequate limits, especially to protect your assets, because again, it's your vehicle is a weapon. Like it's the reality of it, and it might not even be your fault. The craziest thing is like I've had clients like, oh, I drive safe, this and that. I don't care how safe you drive. What if someone cuts you off and you swerve?
What about now the advanced technology that we have in cars? So self-driving cars are cars that can get you to and fro because they have really smart technology. How is that impacting the insurance world?
That's impacted the premiums. Every time someone goes to get a Tesla, I tell them, have you shopped your insurance? Because again, this is just my broad overview. I don't have exact numbers or data, but insurance on Teslas seems to be pretty pricey. I feel like it's leveled off a bit. And people ask why, and I think it's because of the cost to repair them, right? There's less repair facilities, right? You have to go to a specific Tesla place to get it repaired.
And all the technology that costs. It's not just like a fender or material. It's technology and material now.
Exactly. So it drives any claim where before it may have been $5,000, now maybe 10 or 15 grand, right? And the insurance company, they're here to make money.
Backup cameras, all that stuff now.
They're here to recoup costs. So that's definitely driven.
the self-drive mode and lane assist, and you hate it, but in my car, if you're looking aside or you're trying to have like on your phone or something like that, I have a Lexus, and it says look forward, look forward, look forward. Maybe we can turn it off, but we haven't figured out how. But I know it drives you crazy, but all these things are meant to keep us safer. But you bring up such a good point that it's more expensive to repair if you do have a collision or anything like that. So really good pointers in terms of what's driving the auto premium in Florida. But on the flip side, let's talk about and pivot a little bit about why it's important to continue to shop your rates in Florida, even when it's not time for renewal.
Yeah, so we're talking about premium increases or why it's so expensive, but premium has actually gone down significantly in Florida, right? You never hear me talk about this. I know lately you've been like, what's with your deal with auto? I mean, it's so competitive. And Progressive is absolutely extremely competitive right now. Geico is competitive. Everyone, it's like a big fight out there. The market has softened up. Premiums are dropping. So it is extremely important to shop your rates and review. First of all, when you shop your rates, you can save money. You're reviewing your coverages, right? Especially if you go to another agent, and like if you come to me and I don't have your policy, I'm going to ask you certain questions to make sure you have the right coverage in place. So it's twofold, right? You're reviewing your policy, you're going to see your coverages are correct, you're going to understand your deductibles, and you have potential savings, right? How many times recently have I saved? I mean, thousands of dollars for people, and sometimes they stay with the same company. I'm not even, they're with Geico, and I just requote them, and they get the new rates, and it's cheaper, or Progressive, or they get better coverage, and it's cheaper. So yeah, it's extremely important because the market has completely shifted.
So if someone's watching this right now, what's the one thing you want them to do with us today?
Let us take a look at your auto policy, because even if you don't quote, I'll be happy to explain what coverages you have in place, right? So you understand what exposure you have, right? What's your deductible? A lot of people might not even know. You may have a $2,500 deductible or $500 deductible. Are you okay with paying $2,500 out of pocket if you have an accident? If you're not, you should probably look to lower that, right? How much is it going to increase? If you have assets or whatnot, what liability exposure you have. So it's just taking a look to really educate you so you understand what you have in place. And then, of course, hopefully we save you some money.
What do you need? What do you need from them? Like right now, what do you need? What's a quick way where they're listening to this and they say, you know what? I want to know my limits. I have assets. Maybe I want to protect myself a little bit better. I have a newborn baby. I want to make sure I have quality coverage. What do I need to send you like right now?
Easy. So I need the driver's license for every driver in the household, the VIN of every car, and a copy of your declarations page or a screenshot from your app on your mobile phone of the coverages, right? Do I need the declarations page? No, but I'd like to have it so that I'm comparing apples to apples, right? I'm huge on that. I don't want to blindly give you a quote because it's not fair to you or us, right? So driver's licenses, VIN of the cars, and declarations page. And usually the VIN of the cars are on the declarations page. So with driver's license and declarations page, that's it. We have a 1 or 2 minute conversation. I get some other details and you have a quote.
Awesome. Well, I think that everyone should be quoting with you, but if not, or you've been listening or you've been hesitating, no time like the present. You do not have to wait for your renewal. It's super easy. I'm going to put you on the spot, Gio. What's the turnaround time for the team to get someone an auto quote once they give you all their information?
Couple hours. You'll have it within 2 or 3 hours.
Love that.
Probably sooner, but let's say 2 or 3 hours.
Awesome.
Right?
Well, thank you for sharing all your insight. I know it was a lot of information. My head's kind of spinning a little bit, but I can go back and rewatch this. But thank you so much for your honesty, your knowledge, and also just putting in the great work that you and the team at Great Florida Pembroke Pines does every single day.